as we go over to the tight end position, Samantha, I mean, you talked about George Kittle earlier in the show. We said that Dawson Schultz may have been banged up a little bit as well. Who are some tight ends that you have your eyes on the waiver wire?
Sure. Yeah. The first one I'm going to talk about is Logan Thomas. He was actually in my look ahead waiver wire column that I write on Fridays. I just had the suspicion that he might be out there catching touchdowns, and he did actually. He was one of 3 Washington pass catchers to find the end zone, currently the tight end 5 in half PPR heading into Monday night. So he was the tight end 10 last year on a per game basis. He was dealing with a lot of injuries and everything like that. But I think that he could be a seriously nice, like low end tight end 1 this year if Carson Wentz is going to continue playing like that. He's also like, I mean, we talked about this last week with the tight ends, that they can be a little bit more immune to subpar QB play. So right. I think like even if Wentz turns a little bit back into a pumpkin, Thomas will still be relevant out there. He also plays in the NFC least. So he's got some good games coming up against the Eagles, Cowboys, and Titans. So he is 14% rostered. I would say if you are the Schultz manager, if you are the Kittle manager, or if you just have an underperforming tight end like Kyle Pitts or TJ Hawkinson, I might pick another guy up just because, like, you know, I'm not saying ditch Pitts yet, but if it's 3 weeks in a row where he has 2 catches of 19 yards, because he had that in 2 consecutive weeks. I know. And like at one point, you're just going to be like, oh my God, like, is this what the Arthur Smith offense is going to look like? I don't know.
Let me ask you something though, Samantha, maybe we'll talk about this more in the weeks on the horizon, but like, where is that line for you, right? You spend all summer, let's use Kyle Pitts as an example. You spend all summer thinking about like, oh, this guy's going to be tight end 4 overall. I need to use my 4th round draft pick on Kyle Pitts. And then we have 2 performances and some people are already, you know, going to throw him in the dumpster. Like, how long do you have to wait before it's like, oh, okay, I believe what I see. This is the way this offense is going to be. Whether it's Kyle Pitts or anybody else, like, how long do you generally wait until you cut bait?
Yeah, so I'm not cutting bait quite yet with Kyle Pitts. I would say that I would consider benching him next week. Like if you have, for instance, like there are situations where you could have Pat Freiermuth and Kyle Pitts, for instance, like, and I would probably play Freiermuth. He's looked better. I mean, just usage wise has looked better. Now that said, like you have to take a lot of things into consideration. Obviously the draft capital is one of them. Like it's kind of sunk cost at some point, but at the same time, like the reason that you drafted him there is because you did see the talent, you did believe in it, and you don't want to throw out everything that you thought of in the off season for 2 games that you've seen. Like that's the thing, like you kind of have to weight them. Like I would weight those 2 games a little bit more than 2 games from last year, but I don't want to throw out everything that I saw from last year quite yet. So I don't have a hard deadline or anything, but like, for instance, like Cam Akers, who a lot of people drafted as like an RB2, or like low end RB2. I drafted him in a couple leagues. I sat him in every league last week. So he ended up doing okay, not great. But like, I'm pretty quick to basically say like, all right, you're gonna sit on the bench until I see otherwise. And yeah, like sometimes it's disappointing when you miss, like you're a week off, for instance, like they go off on your bench, but then you can say like, kind of like the Garrett Wilson thing. I sat him in every league that I had and he obviously popped off. I was mad for a second, but now I'm like, okay, you know what? Now I have a stud and it's only week 2.
You know, I like that. You sounded like an angry mother there for a second, Samantha. You were like, go to your room, Kyle Pitts, and don't come out until I see you pop off on my bench at least one time. We were talking earlier in the show about Miami and how this offense may be a lot more dynamic than originally anticipated. And for you, does that also go to the tight end position?
Yes and no. So Mike Gesicki, like to be clear, laid a goose egg last week. So it was like 1 catch for 1 yard. So, and I was completely ready to write him off because I was already writing him off or like before the season started. I thought that with the addition of Tyreek Hill, there was going to be someone that was kind of going to lose touches and lose looks there. And a lot of people thought it was Waddle, and Waddle fell in draft boards and stuff like that. And it's not Waddle. Because what I saw from Waddle, I was like, no, they're not going to just abandon that. He is
Waddle's going to win people leagues. Because he
100%.
dropped on draft boards, Waddle is going to win
100%.
people leagues drafted as like a flex wideout, and he might wind up being a top 10 wideout given this Miami offense.
Absolutely. So I had the suspicion that it was going to be Gesicki that was going to lose some of that target share. The first week I was like, oh, confirmation bias. There we go. Like, he's a bum. You can drop him. And then of course he has a good game, super athletic touchdown. I mean, he caught all 4 of his passes for 41 yards and that score. Currently top 3 at the position going into Monday night. I will say, tight ends, they're all kind of touchdown dependent. And those 4 targets do dwarf in comparison to Waddle's and Hill's combined 32 targets. So he's clearly not the guy that they're looking at first. I mean, I don't know how many times Tua is going to be throwing, like 55 times in a game. So I want to temper expectations. I think that he's worth picking up if you are really tight end needy right now. He is only 27% rostered right now, which is pretty good for a guy that was drafted top 12. Because I think a lot of people were just fast to move on from him. We mentioned their schedule. They play the Bills next, so it's probably not a great matchup. But I mean, after a certain point on tight end, it's kind of everyone's kind of touchdown dependent. So if you believe in this Dolphins offense, then being touchdown dependent on the Dolphins offense isn't the worst thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mentioned that I had a tight end that I started in place of George Kittle, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it's Cincinnati Bengals tight end Hayden Hurst. Okay, he's on under 20% of rosters, but here's the thing. For me, it's actually good to get the tight end when I see how piss poor of an offensive line the Bengals have. With Joe Burrow under pressure, as much as he is, you know, he's not taking the 7-step drop backs and able to hit Chase down the sidelines or Higgins in deep routes. He's looking a little bit more for that security blanket of the tight end position, and that's Hayden Hurst. How crazy am I? I started Hurst because Kittle was out. I may ride with Hurst for a little while longer.
Yeah. So speaking of that, I was watching the Arizona game where Kyler Murray had 25 seconds to throw a pass
on the 2-point conversion. Yes.
And they ended up just running it in. And I was just thinking Joe Burrow could never.
Exactly.
But yes, to your point, I do think he is an attractive target. Hurst, he's a guy that didn't really blossom into, I think, from the prospect that we thought he was, but he was a first round talent. He just happened to be on a team with Mark Andrews, who is the tight end 1 for fantasy this year. So I think Hurst is certainly a guy that you can use as a fill-in if you're a Schultz manager at this point. He didn't have necessarily a stellar game this game, but he's getting the looks. He's got the target share, and that's what I want to see. So with these tight ends, like I said, I mean, a lot of them are touchdown dependent, but at least he's getting the targets. So he's going to find the end zone at some point. So I mean, I feel good. He's got the Jets on deck. I don't think that they're necessarily a cakewalk, but it's a good matchup. Let's just say that.